All right, here we go. YouTube, 1 second. All right, guys. My name is Hallie. I am a kettlebell and FRC mobility specialist, and I am here on the Kettlebell Kings account today going to do a workout for you. This is called Unlock Your Hips. We are going to focus on hip things. We're going to focus on hip mobility work, doing some active rotational work for our hips. We're going to be focused on some pelvic rotations, some capsular rotations for our femur bone to really get some room in our capsules. And we're going to incorporate the kettlebell, of course, but it's going to be a very mobility focused and centered workout with some strength movements as well. If you're not familiar with FRC mobility concepts, just try to follow along as best you can. I'll try to cue everything as specifically as possible. And if you're looking for this kind of programming, I do have kettlebell courses that incorporate mobility work as well. And I do one-on-one coaching virtually and programming as well. So you can reach out to me for that kind of stuff. Okay, we're going to start with some hip cars. So these are controlled articular rotations of our hip joint. We're going to do them on hands and knees. So come down onto your hands and knees with me. I'm starting with my left leg, and maybe start with that so you can follow along easily. You're going to set up with your hands right underneath your shoulders. Protract your scaps to drive away from the floor. Rib cage is drawn in, abs are engaged. Curl your toes under toward your shins. And now squeeze your left calf tight to your hamstring. You're going to lift that knee just a little bit and then start to pull your knee toward your chest. So that's your active hip flexion. And then you're going to drive that leg up to the left, getting as much height as you can. Then start to rotate your leg behind you and internally rotate through your hip, driving your heel up toward the sky. And then sweep the knee all the way behind you. Keep pushing out of your scaps. Try not to extend your spine as you extend your hip. Take a breath. Bring the leg down. And now we're just going to reverse everything. So we go into hip extension first. Driving that heel up. Sweeping the leg out to the side slowly. Once you can't get it any further to the side, you're going to rotate externally through your hip. Pull your knee toward your tricep into your hip flexion again. Bring the knee down. Awesome. We're just going to keep it simple and do 1 rep on each side. Just for time's sake, this is more of a brief workout than I would typically do with like a client or for myself. Just giving you a taste of different things. Now we're going to do the other side. So right leg, just set up again. Hands right underneath the shoulders, knees underneath your hips. Curl your toes under. Squeeze that right calf tight to your hamstring to engage your posterior chain. Lift the knee. And then start to pull the knee toward your chest. And then drive that leg up to the side, trying to open up the hip but not the pelvis. Then rotate your leg back behind you. Start to internally rotate the hip, turning the heel up, getting that hamstring to engage. You're in hip extension now. Make sure you're not in spinal extension at all, right? Rib cage is drawn in, tailbone is slightly tucked down. Bring the leg down, and now we just reverse everything. So drive that heel up behind you into your hip extension again. Sweep the leg out to the side, and then externally rotate through the hip. Pull the knee toward your tricep. As you bring it back underneath you, get as much hip flexion as you can, and rest. Awesome. Okay, now we're going to move into a deep squat next. We're going to use our kettlebell to assist our range of motion. So grab any kettlebell, at least a 10 kilogram, just so it feels stable on the ground. You're going to set up your feet. Oops, got some grass on me. Hold on 1 sec. Okay, you're going to set up in your deep squat position. Maybe your toes are turned out. Maybe they're straight forward. Kind of depends on your hip mobility. You're going to get down into your deep squat and grab onto your kettlebell, letting that handle really assist you to keep your weight as far forward as possible, right? So I'm trying to keep my knees to drive past my toes and keep my chest pulling out, my sternum pulling through the shoulders. And you can put your elbows right on the inside of your knees and just breathe here. We're just going to take a few moments to open up the position and just keep that length in our spine. Inhale deep. Try to expand your rib cage fully. Exhale. Rib cage draws in, wrapping in toward your midline. See if maybe you can find a deeper stretch in your ankles and feet. Take a moment here just to release your pelvic floor muscles. Awesome. And now from here, we're going to turn this into an active position by starting to engage our abdominal wall, engage our pelvic floor, find a little bit of lift there. We're going to release the kettlebell and reach the arms straight out in front of us. Protract your scaps to help keep the rib cage drawn in. And we're going to slowly press away from the floor. I want you to imagine that you have about 100 pounds on your back that you're trying to press up with all your might. So you're creating tension for yourself. We're going to go up in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Fully extending the hips, bracing the rib cage in, dropping the tailbone down. Just take a breath here. And now we're going to just go back down in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Take a nice big breath in, and we're going to repeat. See if you can add even more tension into your whole body, like you're in a plank as you move through the squat. 3, 2, 1. Stacking rib cage above pelvis, shoulders above rib cage, and repeat coming down in 5. Imagine your feet are trying to split the floor in half. Drive those knees forward as you lower your hips. 3, 2, 1. One more rep like that, nice and slow. Drive away from the floor. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And now coming back down last time. Try to get as much range of motion as you can. 3, 2, 1. And then just relax. Sit in that deep squat again. Let everything release. That felt great. Nice active body weight squats. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is come down onto our backs. We're going to use our kettlebell for some resistance with our upper body, helping us keep our rib cage in place as we move through some pelvic rotations. And this is going to be a fun little glute bridge variation. So what I like to think, and we're going to engage it again, release the other butt cheek, engage it again. So we're doing like a little dip down with each side of our pelvis and hips. It's not going to feel like big range of motion, but after about 20, 30 seconds, you're going to really feel those glutes start to fire up, and we're getting that natural rotation in our pelvis that we need and use when we walk, when we run, when we dance, when we just do human things, right? So it's important to train that, especially if you're always training in a sagittal plane without rotation. You can really get your hips and pelvis stuck, right? And so we're going to try to break out of that mold. Here we go. So take your kettlebell, hold it with both hands, just bring it straight up above your chest, lay it on your back, and you're going to protract your scaps, right? So rather than letting my scaps sink into the ground, I'm going to protract and try to push that kettlebell up away from the floor. And I'm going to bring my feet hips width distance, make sure my second toe is pointing forward so my toes aren't turned out, because we want to access our glute max and the back center of our hamstrings. And you're going to bridge up into your full hip extension, but keep that rib cage braced in. We don't want to overextend the spine or the rib cage and let that flare open, okay? Now we're going to use the kettlebell to just help keep our rib cage and our T-spine stable. And you're going to release one butt cheek and squeeze it back up. And then release the other side and squeeze it up. Okay, so I'm just, again, it's a small range of motion. It might not feel like much at first, but the more that you can really isolate that side of your glutes, the more you're going to feel it. And this might be something that, you don't have that mind-body connection really. You'll get it. Neurologically, you'll make those connections to those motor neurons and things like that. So you'll get it eventually. But just keep a steady tempo. Keep breathing easy. Keep pushing your scaps up from the floor. Rib cage drawing in and back. And just letting that pelvis rotate slightly on each side. Finding that center position in your typical glute bridge hip extension position in between. We're going to go for another 20 seconds. I'm not counting reps, I'm just going for time. 10 seconds left. Slowly release the muscle, engage it again. Really pressing down through both feet. Last 3, 2, 1. And then lower the hips all the way down. Set your bell down to the side. We're going to move on to another hip drill real quick. And this is going to be some hip hovers in our abduction or abduction position for our hip. So we're going to really engage the glute medius on the side, the glute minimus, rather than the glute max right on the back of the butt. So this is going to feel mostly on the side of your hip. Okay, so you're going to grab your kettlebell, put it right to the side of your hip, and you're going to lengthen your leg directly out to the side. Okay, and you're going to start with your leg directly in front of your kettlebell, and then bring your hands right underneath your shoulders. You're on the big toe side of your foot rather than it being flat on the ground, right? So pick up that pinky edge toward the sky. And now I'm going to try to really keep my body stable as I use my breath, and I'm going to exhale, lift up over my kettlebell, hover my leg behind it, set it down. And then we're going to go back over to the starting position. So big inhale, control the foot down. Okay, of your shoulders, try not to let your elbows bend. You also want to avoid leaning to the side toward your opposite arm as much as possible. So I'm really keeping weight in my left arm as I'm lifting my left leg. You can even take your right hand off the floor, put it at your shoulder to make sure you're not cheating. That's extra challenging. One more rep here. Exhale, lift. Last rep. Relax the leg, just come up and we'll switch sides. Okay, so this is a mobility drill. We're getting that active range of motion rather than a passive stretch. So this is going to make strength gains in your hips as well as increase your mobility. This is why I like the FRC approach to mobility work. Okay, so many leaps. Okay. All right, here we go. You're going to take that nice big inhale. Brace your rib cage in, abdominal wall is engaged, push out of your scaps, exhale, lift the leg, hover over your kettlebell or your object, and then repeat coming back to that starting position. Okay, and one side might be more challenging than the other, and that's just, something to be aware of. Doesn't mean that one side is better or the bad side, it's just that side needs a little more attention, a little more improvement in that range of motion, and that'll take time. But, humans, we're asymmetrical beings. Even internally, our organs aren't symmetrical, so it's very common to feel like one side of your body is stronger than the other, has more range of motion. Last rep, exhale, lift. Again, try not to bend those elbows or lean to the opposite side. Come back to where you started and rest. Okay, and then we're going to do one more movement in the circuit, and that's a standing hip car with a kettlebell rack. Okay, so it's the same sequence that we did in the tabletop position, only now you're going to hold your kettlebell in the opposite arm in the rack position as you move through your hip car. Okay, so I'm going to start with my, let's see, I'll face this way so you guys can see my working hip really well. I'm going to start with the right arm racking the belt, and my left leg is going to do 2 reps of the hip car as I'm balancing on my right leg and standing tall. Okay, so you're going to clean the belt up to your rack. Opposite arm is just going to protract and reach that fist forward, shifting my weight onto my right leg. I'm going to lift up the hip flexion, driving my heel back. Everything else stays stable. Getting into my hip extension. Just bring my knee forward a little bit and then reverse it. Drive it back to hip extension. Sweep the leg out to the left, lifting it up as high as I can, rotating top of the knee up, and then pulling it in front of you. Tap the foot down, take a moment, breathe. And now one more rep like that. Hip flexion. Remember, rib cage is staying braced in, trying to keep my tailbone dropping down toward the floor so I'm not moving into lumbar extension. Reverse the rotation. Keep breathing. Pull it in front of you and rest. Okay, then I'm just going to turn this way so you guys can see my working hip. And we're going to do 2 reps on the right leg. Okay, so left arm's going to rack the bell, clean it up, and protract that right arm, that right scap forward, lifting toes to shin as I lift my knee. Drive that leg out to the side. Start to internally rotate and drive the heel back, getting as much active hip extension as I can. Trying to keep that rib cage braced in. And now reverse it. Bring it in front. Set the foot down, take a breath. One more rep on this side. Here we go. Just getting as much range of motion as you can while keeping the rest of the body stable. That's the whole point with a lot of this FRC mobility work, is we're trying to isolate parts of the body and avoid compensations. So that way we can increase that range of motion. And then when we use our whole body and integrate things together, things feel much stronger, more supported, and overall just juicier and smoother. Okay, I'm just going to take a little water break. Let me know if anyone has any questions. Okay. Someone said, my hands are incredibly sweaty and keep getting ripped using liquid chalk. Any tips? So I made this mistake as a beginner kettlebell student in the past, where actually putting too much chalk on too soon made it like kind of cakey and then would rip the skin. So I would say go really mild with your chalk, only use a tiny little layer, and that should help. Also, if you're really feeling like nothing's working, just use gloves. I mean, that's an option too. I don't use a lot of chalk personally, but my hands don't get crazy sweaty a lot. But yeah, I don't know if anyone else in the comments has any tips for that. I would just say go easy on your chalk. I'm just going to check if there's any other questions here. Cool. Okay, we're going to do another set of that circuit, guys, starting with that glute bridge variation. So you're going to lay on your back and grab that kettlebell, pressing it over your chest. Okay? I forgot to take a sip of water. Hold on one sec. All right, here we go. So grab your bell, get down on the ground, press that bell straight up over your chest, protract your scaps. Oh, sorry, feet on the floor. I was about to do a dead bug. We're going to do that glute bridge variation. So protract those scaps, reaching the bell up as high as you can, and then bridge your hips up. But remember, don't go into spinal extension or rib cage flare. Keep that rib cage braced in. And then you're going to release one butt cheek, engage it again, and release the other side, engage. And just focus on the glutes and hamstrings. You can isometrically tug your heels backwards toward your bum, as if you're trying to pull the floor underneath you, closer to you. And that will engage those hamstrings a little more fully, even those glutes a little more fully with that isometric tug of your heels. That's always an option to get a little more engagement. And just making sure that you're, not crunching your toes. Make sure that the toes are splayed and spread so your feet are able to have support and a nice, good balance on the ground. Practice those things even in a simple exercise like this, like a glute bridge, because then that will translate to your standing strength movements like lunges, squats, deadlifts. We want to keep the feet open and splayed with the toes to have really nice balance and activation in the arches. 10 more seconds, guys. Just keeping those glutes going, keeping that pelvic dip going. 4, 3, 2, 1, and lower the bell all the way down. And then we're going to set up for that hip abduction hover again. If you felt like the first round wasn't as challenging and you want to go a little more challenging, you can get a taller object, right? That's always going to make it more challenging. Or you can come down onto your forearms and elbows. So lowering your chest will basically create that height differentiation for this next set. So if I wanted to make this more challenging, I could come down onto my forearms and elbows, setting up, making sure that everything is still stable. I'm still going to draw my rib cage in and brace my abs. And then as I exhale and lift, it feels a little more challenging to lift over my object, even though the object isn't taller, right? I'm creating that bigger challenge for myself by taking the height of my arms away, right? Because I'm getting less leverage basically for my range of motion. Just make sure you're not sinking into your scaps. One more on this side. And lower down. Come out of that position. We'll do the other side. Same thing. If you want to, and maybe one side is a little easier than the other. So maybe on the second side, you don't want to come down to your elbows and forearms. It's up to you. But I'm going to try to make my range of motion as symmetrical as possible. So I'm going to come down on my forearms and elbows here. Okay. Keeping length in my spine, my rib cage, packing in and back toward the back of my body. I'm going to take a big inhale. Exhale, lift, hover over that kettlebell. Woo! And then reverse it. Exhale, lift. And 3 more on this side. Just maintain as much stability as you can. Try to avoid leaning into the opposite side. We got this. 2. Last full rep, lifting over. Controlling down, no crash landings. Reverse back over. And rest. Sweet. And then we have the hip cars again. Okay, so grab your bell. Sorry, guys, I'm outside. I just got so many dead leaves like stuck to my knees and stuff. Okay, here we go. So again, I'm going to clean on my right side and move with my left leg in my full range of motion. Here we go. Clean that bell. Opposite arm protracts forward. Shift your weight to that standing leg. And moving through your hip car. Keeping the rest of your body as stable as possible. Really using that kettlebell to help ground you into that standing leg, but keep lifting up through the top of your head, making sure you're not letting the kettlebell kind of sink you down, right? 1 more rep on this side. We're going to have juicy hips after this, guys. You'll be able to do anything. Here we go. Finish that rep. And bring the kettlebell down. Just switching sides quickly. Here we go. Clean the bell up with that left arm now. Protract that right scap. Shift weight to the left leg. Drive the knee up. And then open up to the side. Internally rotate as much as you can. Driving the heel back. Get into that hip extension. And then reverse it. This kind of work takes a lot of patience because you can't rush through things to get the benefits of it, right? Otherwise, you're not really engaging. So go slow. Second rep, here we go. Driving up. It can be tedious. It can be frustrating, but there's so many benefits to moving with intention, focusing on your alignment, on your engagement, your breath. Bring the kettlebell down, rest. Okay. I'm going to do one more little circuit with you guys. We're going to be doing a Cossack lunge variation that I find really challenging and fun. It's challenging and fun in a very humbling way. And we're going to superset it with some kettlebell swings. Okay, so the swings I would recommend going light with, right? Because we're doing so much mobility work, I don't want you to crush your hips, right? We're trying to open them up, access more range of motion, feel things out, right? So this is like a recovery day workout. We're not going heavy. Okay, just going to check for any questions. All right. Hello. All right. So this next sequence will feel challenging if you've never done a Cossack squat before. Especially, it's going to feel kind of challenging for your brain and your body. But a Cossack lunge or squat is this position where you have your legs nice and wide, your toes are slightly turned out, especially with the leg that you're bending into, and you're going to come down nice and low, and then we're going to shift through center to the other side and back up, okay? And then we're going to repeat going the other way. So you're going to come down to this leg, shift through center, and then press up. Notice that we did a hip drill with those hovers to increase our hip abduction, right? So that was to warm up this position, right? Because as I'm coming down into this bent leg, this leg is abducted, especially, right? In this more internal rotation position. So that's what we were basically working on to prep for this. Now, you can do this with a kettlebell, or you can do it with just your body weight, or you can do it even with like a TRX suspension trainer to have assistance, right? Because this is very challenging. And you don't have to go as low as I was just going. Like, I highly recommend doing a challenging position for yourself, but don't sink into the position to the point where you're just letting your joints take the weight. You want to still keep integrity of your spine, still keep the engagement in your abdominal wall, your rib cage, in position. If you're coming down to the side and you find that you're really extending and letting your rib cage flare, right? This is not as helpful for your body, right? It might have its place in maybe dance or aerial yoga or something like that, right? But if we're working and strictly focusing on kettlebell training and keeping the integrity of our abdominal engagement and our rib cage placement, we're going to try to get nice and low, but make sure that everything is stacked still, right? Shoulders, pelvis, rib cage are all stacked as I come in and out of the position. Okay? All right, enough talking. Let's get to it. So I'm going to do this with a kettlebell in the rack position. Or actually, I'm going to hold it with both hands in front of me because in what we call the cradle grip, because we're going to be going side to side alternating. So it just makes more sense. Sorry. Okay, so what you can do is just bring your kettlebell up, handle down into your chest, basically. Hands are at the side of the bell, elbows are pulled in. You're going to start in that nice wide-legged position, and you're going to come down to one side in your Cossack lunge. Get as low as you can with that integrity of your rib cage like we talked about. Shift over to the other leg. Exhale, press up, full hip extension. And now let's reverse it going the other way. Coming down. Think about your legs really pulling you into the position. Coming across, press up. Good. We're going to do it just 2 more times to each side, guys. Just breathe. Like I said, you don't have to go as low as I'm going, especially through the center position. It might be challenging to get that full range of motion, but just do the best you can. And maybe for you, that means being more up here. That's okay. One more time each way. Pulling yourself down. Think about that deep squat we did earlier, that knee traveling out. past your toes. One more time to the left, coming down with control through that center position. Press up. Good. And just bring the ball down. Woo. Shake it out. Okay. So now we're going to do some kettlebell swings supersetted with that in a split stance position, a single arm swing. And we're going to focus on pelvic and hip rotation, because just like we did in that glute bridge variation, I'm just going to show you from the side here, right? As I hinge, if I think about really rotating at the hips and pelvis and driving that femur bone back, just a slight rotation there, I get a deeper stretch in my hamstring and I load more into the meat of my glute, right? The very back glute max, right? And that's where we want to really load in a hip hinge. Okay, so as I swing, I'm going to think about trying to get that little rotation and then pop up. Little rotation and then square off at the top. Okay, there's a little bit of that T-spine rotation, but it's really happening because my pelvis and my hips are shifting at about a 45-degree angle, right? So it's not my T-spine that's rotating. My T-spine follows, but my pelvis is the thing that's rotating into this nice deep engagement. Even if you just practice this without a kettlebell, practice coming in and out of that rotation, you are going to feel your glute in a much more intense way than you would if you were just here. Right? This feels a little bit more like hamstring, right? Especially lower toward my knee. So that's just a variation that we're going to do. I'm just going to check for any questions. Cool. All right, here we go. Let's do 10 reps of the single arm swing, and then we'll switch to the other side. I'm going to face this way with my right leg forward so you can see that rotation. I'll face the other way with my left leg forward, okay? So here we go. Set up your bell in front of you. You're about 2 feet distance back, and you're going to have the front leg is where you have most of your weight. Your back heel is going to be popped up. You're going to hinge, grab the bell with your left hand, your right leg's forward. Load into that glute, shift your weight back, keep your chest pulling forward, and you're going to hike and come up. And then find that little rotation every time you hinge over. And remember, we're just doing an easy weight to really feel out our glutes and that pelvic rotation. One more. Park the bell. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Okay, let's switch sides. Let me know if you have any questions on this, guys. It's a little different than a typical single arm swing. Okay, set up on this side, left leg forward, right hand has the bell. We're going to hike back as we hinge. Remember, we're trying to rotate the pelvis to about that front knee, that 45-degree angle, to make sure we're loading into that glute every time we hinge. Square off at the top. Rotate, square off. Okay, here we go. Grab the bell, get in your hike position, load back into your glute, chest is pulling forward, and begin. Three more. Just focus on that glute engagement. Last one. Bring it down. Rest. Woo! My hair's falling out. Sorry, one sec. Okay, does anyone have any questions on that swing variation? Just want to make sure it feels good in your body, feels clear. Awesome. Okay, we're going to do one more set, starting with that Cossack lunge. Just take another 30 seconds to breathe. Rest is important. Sometimes it can be tough to not push through too fast and really take your rest time, but it's super important to get that recovery for your muscles so that way you can perform better, and not injure yourself. Whew. Okay. So we're going to go back into that Cossack lunge. Remember, you don't have to do this with any load. You can do it with just your body weight. Highly recommend practicing that, or even, like I said, using a TRX or a suspension trainer. So that way you can have assistance and make sure you're not compensating in the position, because this is a very mobile position, right? This Cossack lunge. So don't feel too bad if you're like, oh my God, this feels so challenging. Why is it so hard? It's hard. That's why. It's a hard position, especially if you're always training in the sagittal plane, like I talked about earlier, the frontal plane side to side, your transverse plane, your rotational plane, right? That kind of stuff can feel really hard if you're just always swinging, squatting, deadlifting in a bilateral stance, lunging, right, in a sagittal plane, right? We want to try to break out of that, especially on a weekly basis. Make sure your programming has these kinds of rotational and like three-dimensional work in it, because that's what we are. We're humans in a three-dimensional world, and we often rotate and are in asymmetrical positions and need that power to transfer from foot to foot, just like when you walk and you have that rotation in your pelvis. You got to train it, right? Okay, enough talking. Let's get to the second set. Bring your kettlebell up however you want to hold it. I recommend the cradle grip. You can hug it in to your chest, pull the elbows in toward your rib cage, and then get in your nice wide position. And you're going to go to your right side, get into that Cossack squat, transfer across through center, and then exhale, push away the floor, come up to center. Then go the opposite way to your left leg and transfer over and push out of it. That was one round. We're doing two more. Okay, so starting to the right, feel that nice big stretch. Go through center, push up out of it, and back down to the left. Keep breathing. If you can talk and breathe, you're doing great. If you can't breathe or talk, maybe take a little breather. Last round. Press up out of it. And last time, going to the left. Push across. And then push away the floor. Nice. Set the bell down. Whew. Just breathe for a few moments. It's a lot for the hips, that nice open position, right? It's not nothing. Okay, and then we're going to go into those swings again. And just another tip, I want you to think about your foot placement on the ground, right? If you find that you're setting up with your front foot and your toe, your big toe is turned out to the side, or your big toe is even facing forward, I want you to adjust that so your second toe is the one that is going straight out from your ankle, okay? Because that is going to allow the arch of your foot to activate more, right? We want to think about like the arch of a foot is like a suction cup on the ground, and we're trying to lift a little bit of that ground up with me, right? So I'm trying to suction cup up. I'm not going to scrunch my toes a lot, but they're splayed open and pressing into the ground, and I'm trying to lift up the arch of my foot. And with that, I can get more of that glute engagement as I rotate through my pelvis and then square off at the top. Okay? All right, let's do it together. 10 reps of the swing. Set up with your bell in front of you, about a foot in front of you. Back foot has the heel popped up. Your weight is shifted onto that front leg mostly. Get into your hike position. Tilt the handle toward you. Load into your front legs glute especially. Take a big breath in. Chest is pulling forward. And hike. And find that rotation in your pelvis. every time you hinge. So your chest is reaching out toward that front knee, a slight angle. It's not big, but it helps you find that glute max. 2 more. And bring the bell down. Just rest. We'll switch sides. I hope this is making sense for everyone. Right, we built these concepts over the past 30 minutes or so from our warm up to this point. So you can see how these things, these concepts, and this engagement and these rotations are helping making your kettlebell training stronger, right? Mobility training has a place with kettlebells. You just have to know how to integrate it properly and how it can really make your performance better and stronger. Okay, here we go. Set up your foot, that second toe facing forward. Get in your hinge. Grab the bell. Load into your back loop. Really feel that stretch in your hammy. And hike. And find that rotation. Rotate, square off. Rotate, square off. Three more. Last one. Bring it down. I might have done an extra rep. Not the best at counting when I'm talking and breathing and doing all the things, but hope that made sense, guys. Cool. All right. We're just going to cool down. You can move your bell to the side. Let me know if you have any questions before we go. Type them into the comments. And we're just going to do a nice little stretch sequence. So stand with your feet hips width distance, tall posture, arms down by your side. Take a big breath in. Chin comes down toward your chest. Roll down through your spine. Hang over your legs for a few moments. You can have a soft bend in the knees. Just let your head hang heavy. Relax your neck. Release tension from your jaw, your cheeks, your tongue. And then walk out to a plank. Bring your shoulders right above your wrist. Push away from the floor. Take a moment here to lengthen through your body. And then step 1 foot forward. Take a big breath in as you reach that arm up. Open your chest. Exhale, throw that arm through. One more time like that. Inhale. And exhale. Bring that hand underneath your shoulder. Bring the knee down behind you. And just pull your chest open. Try to relax the front of your hip and pelvis. You can let the front knee fall out to the side. You can even use this hand to push the knee out, push your chest away. That feels great. Take another breath here. And then we'll just set up in the plank again, and then switch sides, okay? So step the opposite foot forward. 2 rotations. Inhale, you open up your chest. Exhale, you turn it through. 1 more. Exhale. And just bring the hand underneath your shoulder. Let that back knee and the toes release. Pull your chest open. Try to really get as much of a stretch in the front of your back legs hip. And you can use that other hand to push the knee out to the side of the bed leg. Feels good. Okay, and then just take that hand underneath your shoulder again. Step back to your plank. Send your hips up and back to your down dog now. Pedal through the feet or do what feels good. Try to slow down your breath. And then walk your hands all the way back to your feet again. Hang over your legs. Maybe take hands to opposite elbows. Take 1 more breath. And then relax your arms. Start to slowly roll up through your spine. Go vertebrae by vertebrae. Feel your knees stack over your ankles. Hips and pelvis over your knees. Rib cage over your pelvis and hips. Shoulders over the rib cage. Head comes up last. Find your tallest posture. Take a breath here. Just feeling everything out. Okay, guys, that is all the time I have for today. So we're going to end here. I hope you enjoyed the workout. Let me know if you have any questions about anything. Put it in the comments. If you have any training questions in general, mobility, kettlebells, let me know. And also, I'm going to be starting my virtual mobility class every Saturday starting November 4th and bringing it back. I took about a year off the past year because I had a baby with that class. So now I'm bringing it back. And if you want info on that class, just DM me and I will send you the link to my newsletter. It has all the information for that. And also, if you have any training inquiries, want to work with me, just send me a DM or put me and Coach in the comments and I will reach out to you. Thanks so much. And I'll be back next month doing another mobility and strength focused workout with Kettlebell Kings. I think it's November 13th is my date. I'll have to double check on that. But that's going to be a shoulder focused workout. Okay, cool. Thanks, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Have a great day. I'll see you guys soon. Bye. Bye, YouTube. Thanks so much. Hope you enjoyed the workout. Have a good one.